Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. Today we have Oren Klaff on the podcast, who has written a brilliant book called Pitch Anything about just how to really up your sales game and like make your business a much more easier thing to run and really drive your business in the direction you want to be doing it. And now he's had a new book called Flip the Script, which I'm super excited to dive into and generally just unpack a bit more about Oren himself, because you sound like a pretty interesting guy. So it's my pleasure to have you on the podcast here today. So if there's anything you want to add to that, you're welcome. Otherwise, I quite like to ask my guests their life story in like 3 to 4 minutes, just to sort of get a bit of a picture of like who you are, where you've come from, and where you're going.
Yeah, I think that's good. My background was pretty technical. I was in mechanical engineering. I loved cars and motorcycles and worked on that stuff. And I thought I was destined for a life of technology. I started a software company many years ago before the internet, and it grew actually quite large. We ended up having 70, 80 people, cresting through $8.5, $9 million of revenue, tens of thousands of customers. And like many fast growth tech companies, we started running short on capital because of the growth pace. And so there wasn't really venture capital in those days. There was a little bit, but it was mainly for hardware, not software. Software was mainly homegrown. And we were in Southern California, not Northern California, Palo Alto, where there a little bit of money that did exist was. And so we started running short on money. I started looking around for money, and I met all kinds of people, bankers, and go public and raise money. And they said, you need a marketing plan, you need a financial plan, you need a presentation, you need a pitch deck, you need a growth plan, you need KPIs. And we were just running a software company. I didn't know the language of finance. And so unfortunately for that company, we couldn't raise money fast enough to really turn it into something huge. We did end up selling it, but that created a wound in terms of understanding how to go get money and resources for things you did. And I think I've been trying to heal that wound for the last 20 years. And so that's why I've become so an expert at what does it take to walk into a room, get on a phone, get on a Skype call, whatever the case is, make in these high stakes scenarios where you have one bite at the apple. When you go to Bank of America to ask for a $100 million construction loan, right? You go make the presentation, they ask you some questions, they go to committee, and they come out with yes or no. And the no is a no. They're not like, hey, it sounded good, come back in 2 weeks, improve these things, let's take another look at it. It's these high stakes meetings, and everybody has them in their life, whether it's a marriage proposal, whatever the case is, high stakes meetings, one bite at the apple, do or die. So that's what I became an expert in, because that's where I died. And I've been what was that movie with Tom Cruise where he goes into the exact, he goes in the exact same situation over and over again, and he dies every single time, and then he's reconstructed to do it again.
Yeah.
So he solves it. Remember what that was called?
Day, but it's the other one. Yeah, it's good.
It's like Groundhog Day for war, right?
Yeah, in the future.
Yeah. And so I lived, Groundhog Day for finance, high stakes, and I was willing to go to the front, die, go to the front again, die, until eventually, bit by bit, I started to understand what works and what doesn't. And then eventually I got in with a guy who was just a natural at this, and he changed my worldview on what was possible. And I'll tell you sort of the changing moment for me, which led to Pitch Anything, which led to Flip the Script, which led to, whatever. I was telling, we have a new CEO here. I was telling him yesterday, we were on vacation in Hawaii and Maui, and I woke up at 6 a.m. to go get a coffee with my little boy. We walked into a scooter shop that wasn't open yet, but the scooter shop owner was just sort of sweeping up, and he turns around and he goes, "What? Oren Klaff? So is here in my scooter shop in the far edge of North Shore, Maui?" So the things that have given rise to that life, started, and at one vivid moment, we were working on a big deal. I had a partner, just call him Jonathan. It's not his name, but he doesn't like his name being used. Really high net worth guy. And we were raising $1 million for a deal. And this was the last $1 million we needed. And the investor was being difficult. They just didn't want to sign some documents. There was a lot of back and forth. And finally, Jonathan just sent an email, all caps, 3 words: lose my number. Lose my number. And I'm like, oh my God, the deal's dead. I've never seen anything like that in business. I mean, it's like the rudest, most over the top, all caps. I'm just used to professional. I'm not sure that works for us. We're thinking in a different perspective. Lose my number. I go, the deal's dead. I needed the commission from it. I had worked on it for weeks. I'm like, how did we just kill? And as I'm thinking and being depressed and it's an impossible situation to get out of, another email comes in and they go, they reply, we're so sorry. Didn't mean to, stretch the legal document. You're absolutely right. This is a non-issue. We'll have signed documents over to you and wire by the end of the week. And so I was like, how did lose my number turn into closed deal? And it opened a new universe to me of things that are happening below the surface in transactions that are identifiable, that are palatable, that are usable, that really exist, and that can make the difference in high stakes situations when you have to get something done because it can change your career, your life, the trajectory of where you're going to end up as a person. And so that was a moment when I realized there was a lot more going on in social situations in business than meets the eye.
That's interesting. So yeah, there's so many things that go into any decision that you kind of think are like simple or allow and just something to do with you and so much other stuff. But it kind of makes me a bit confused as to what were the other things going on in this scenario, because you told quite a good story and painted a nice picture. It'd be nice to complete what was actually happening. Like, what were the things that you realized about that was going on?
Yeah.
I'm in a bit of a mystery here.
Neediness kills deals, and so the allowing people to control you when you have the project, you have the idea, you have the company, you have the asset, you have the resource, and all they have is money. See, when you are supplicating to money, money's a commodity. What you have is, in many cases, yourself. If you're a CEO or an entrepreneur or a sales guy or an executive or an admin, you have yourself, and all they have is money. Money's a commodity. You can get it anywhere. Your integrity, your values, your know-how, your capability, your strengths, your connections, your commitment, your appreciation for problems, your experience having solved the problems before, your not the least with your product or your service. That is all an incredible value, especially when it can solve the buyers or the customers or the investors' problem. So all they have is a commodity, and you have something amazing. So you who have the real power, the real strength, the real foothold in the transaction shouldn't supplicate with neediness to what is ultimately just a commodity. Now, there's a fine line because you want the money, you want the contract, you want the agreement. But when you stop supplicating or acting needy, then there's a real alignment in power. See, and what ultimately, you opened Pandora's box with your question. Well, what ultimately is happening is when somebody feels powerful or high status over you, there's some real physical things going on, right? Their vision narrows, they see you at a surface level, and they take high risk behaviors, things they wouldn't do if the stakes were higher for them. They might text, they might take an email, they might, send you a negotiation tactic that is overreaching, like in this case, the example I gave. And so they see you at a surface level, they don't listen very well, their focus narrows, they pay attention to other things, and they engage in high risk behaviors. That's what happens when somebody feels powerful. So if you make them feel powerful by the things you're doing, you're sort of a complicit in your own demise.
That's really interesting.
And you can, sorry to, just to complete the thought, you can trace neediness, and I've tried to do it, and I've talked to cognitive psychologists and regular psychologists and not psychologists and amateur psychologists and business people. But I think one way to look at neediness is to go back all the way through, subhuman time, even 70, 80, 90,000 years ago, when there was no surplus of anything. So if somebody, all you had was a woman, a dog, some fire, and food, to get through the next 24 hours, and potentially a cave. Like those are the things you had. Or you didn't have an Xbox and a bicycle and 2 computers, and you didn't have anything to trade. When somebody came to you and they were needy, that was dangerous. meant that they were willing to do things and behaviors that were dangerous and risky. You didn't want to be around people that were needy because it would lead to conflict. So neediness creates fear in people. You want to get away from people that are needy. It puts you in the low status position. It elevates other people to power. And this is not a situation where you can close a deal from in modern day commerce.
Yes. Pretty good point. I definitely highlighted the first thing you said of neediness kills deals, because it's so true in any kind of relationship besides business. It's just like a huge red flag for anyone. And it either means that you're going to have like a shit deal for yourself, or it's just not going to happen at all. So
and so the thing is, the ability to see where to draw the line and how to draw the line professionally, right? That then engage, and then this is really what Pitch Anything was about, is how to draw the line in your neediness in a professional way that will be accepted, and put the buyers or the partners or whatever in alignment with getting a deal done, right? And that then ties into moral authority. So if you've built up, I think this is maybe a topic you guys are interested in, but if you built that your values, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and those values are in the middle of the fairway for culture, for society, for human beings in general. And they're actually your values, not bullshit. We do things right by the customer. I mean, that's not bullshit. A company should do things, but like,
there's a lot of values people have that are just complete bollocks. And you're like, well, you've just written down like a values mission statement and you have no idea what it means.
For sure. So listen, a lot of people I talk to, I say, hey, what are your values? Right. And they say fairness. I'm like, okay, for me, I don't give a fuck. Everybody fucks me over no matter what. Right. Because I don't care that much. Most of the deals I end up doing aren't fair to me. I do the best I can. Right. But fairness is not really a value to me. Right. I try and get a deal done, move forward, do the best deal possible, have a good relationship with everyone. And I don't really view the world in like a win-win relationship. Right. Mainly I'm willing to lose and a bit. I don't try to over maximize. So fairness, I like fairness. Fairness is important. It's probably in our mission statement, but that doesn't make me mad, right? If it's unfair. So there are these universal values that companies adopt. Hey, I've spoken to a company the other day, large company, and they had, trust and loyalty and fairness and sort of the thesaurus on, if you look up goodwill, what are the other words associated with it? Trust, loyalty, fairness, appreciation. We treat people like we want ourselves to be treated. I mean, it's sort of concepts from the Bible, but that's not really your values. When you communicate your values that you're absolutely dedicated to, and you stick to your guns, and that's in Flip the Script, the chapter in Flip the Script is how to stick to your guns. That is what communicates lack of neediness, right? And lack of, and so what you'll see is where the need, and most business people communicate neediness by reacting to the buyer or, whatever deal they're in, where they're trying to, hire somebody or recruit somebody or get a loan or whatever it is, whatever emotional state or whatever the emotional needs the buyer are, the seller tries to appease those emotional needs. That's how you communicate neediness, right? So if you think about it, that's why, and Tony Robbins and I argue about this, till we die, rapport, right?
Yeah.
He believes in rapport and I don't believe in rapport, right? Matter of fact, if you come work here and I hear you going, hey, how's the weather over there? Did you see the game? How about that storm? Oh, Dallas this time of year. How about those Cowboys? Oh, you were fly fishing. I love fly fishing. Oh, you were snowboarding. Yeah, I want to start snowboarding. Rapport, right? Making people like you, to me, is the first step in demonstrating supplication and neediness. Why are their sports, the things they care about, the weather, A, more important than the deal you've come to talk about, and B, more important than the things that you care about? Sorry, I'm talking over you, but
it's okay. I agree.
Can I get, and most of the time it's a mess up anyway, right? Because like if you come here, and by the way, you're welcome, but at the back of our corporate offices, we've got a warehouse, right? And I've collected over many years some of the iconic motorcycles of all time, right? Magazine cover motorcycles. So someone will come in and they will go, "Oh, motorcycles, this is amazing." And, they'll see the motorcycles and they'll go, when I was in college, I delivered pizza I love motorcycles, on a CB 360T. Right. And, motorcycle, this motorcycle. I'm like, yeah, in college, you rode the world's shittiest motorcycle that was ever made in the history of two-wheeled things with an engine in it. Right. And these are icons from the history of motorcycle racing. Like, it's not really, not that his subject is better than mine, but it's not really correlation on the same subject. Motorcycles is a huge thing. And so most of the time when we do try and correlate and find rapport, it's a miss anyway. Somebody went to Alabama and played on the Alabama football team, and you love watching Florida State college football. It doesn't mean anything. It's barely correlated. And so you start to layer something. Anyway, I cut you off on this subject.
It's okay. I just quite agree on like building rapport over meaningless stuff is quite useless. I do think it's really nice to like maybe build if you can ask like intimate questions and actually talk about something super interesting that's kind of quite deep. It's actually really nice. You can help build like trust and actually at least gives you sort of 10 minutes of something really interesting to talk about, and maybe you get something from it as well, which I do kind of like doing. But if I'm there to like talk about something specific and going on like a half-hour debate of like, do I have like narcissistic ego issues because I go to the gym too much rather than just trying to be healthy or something with someone, it's like, it's an intimate conversation to have, which is quite nice, but do I need to have this right now with someone I've just met? It depends on what it is. Well, it can be fun to unpack.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my world, and I've got our new CEO sitting here, and we're sort of veterans of multi-million or $100 million deals. Nobody goes, you know what? I don't really like the deal. The terms aren't fair. The technology seems a little bit behind, but there's a better vendor. But man, this guy loves snowboarding. We got to get this done.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
As the stakes go up, whether they like you, I mean, liking is sort of a minimum requirement, and they're going to find that out over time, especially when you're talking to a professional buyer who knows how to unpack a seller over, a series of calls, meetings, proposals, exchanges and negotiation. They're going to really see who you are, and whether you guys both like snowboarding is not going to impact the final closing of this real estate deal, this SaaS software sale, this government contract, whatever it is. They're going to buy because there's value there, and there's certainty that the thing you say will happen in the future will actually happen as you say they will, without high friction. So they're looking for trust and certainty, not correlation to different kinds of sports.
Yeah. Although I would like completely counteract that statement in terms of people do like relationships and things. And sure, if I have two people to like buy something from, and one's like my daughter's husband or something, I'm probably going to buy it from him because it will help something,
If it's not to interrupt you, because nobody likes to be interrupted, but if it's a bicycle, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if one's shit and one's not,
$50 million rack of servers that you're going to go public with your company and impact 2,000 investors, who have put money in your company. Have you made securities compliant promises to over a series of years? This is not so much a factor.
Yeah, true. But
true.
If I'm going to have to work with this person a lot, I would not want to work with someone who's a dickhead. So I would like to have someone that I would like having around my office, and maybe I could go for a pint with after work or something.
This is why we go back to the conversations of values. You can't really understand somebody by whether they like the Boston Celtics, the Patriots, or the Green Bay Packers, or they, follow the news on the storm, or what side of Brexit they fall on. What you can understand is their value. So for example, if you look at our customer roster, right? We don't have any 75-year-old Chinese women, right? Who are our customers, in our enterprise services group. Nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with us, But in general, we like to be friends with our customers. We end up going on trips with them. We close large deals. They generally have kids. We have kids. Our kids are friends. My little boy plays hockey, and it is our value system matches up with theirs, and they like us because we share this. We don't stop when we're tired. We stop when we're done. Sometimes we lose money, right? Even though, on a project we've committed to do, and just the edges fall off and we still have to keep doing it. These are around of values. Here's, for example, when I'm talking to a customer, I'll say, listen, this is a perfect example. They'll go, we'll make a pitch and we'll talk to them about it and we'll negotiate a little bit. And they go, yeah, Oren, sounds good. I think it's good. Let's go ahead and do it. Right. They're sort of, rolling over and showing their neck. And I say, no, even though that's a yes, I'll say, that doesn't work for me. Like, we're going to try and do a $30 million deal together. Yeah, let's go do it. It sounds good. That is way too hard. I really need you to say, Oren, I love you. I love the way it works. So excited about this project. Let's go make this happen together. Because I'll tell you why. In a big project like this, whether you're installing servers or doing a government contract or raising money or selling a company or installing accounting software for a large company, whatever it is that you do, the higher the stakes, there will come a point where there's a disagreement. Something went wrong. And this is what I say to our customers. Some Sunday night, you will be expecting a set of financials, a pitch deck, so you can go present on a Monday morning, right? We'll have promised you that. You'll be expecting it. You hit refresh, and it doesn't show up. And that's our fault. And we did it wrong. You're going to call us up Monday morning, go, what the hell, blah, blah, swear. And we're going to say, I'm sorry. We missed that. And sorry is not going to be enough. And we still have to be mad at each other. We still have to be uncomfortable. We still have to have high anxiety. Blame has to still be in place. And yet we still have to be able to go forward and not break up and not ruin the work and make it about the work. And still in that state of irreconcilable issues in that moment, continue forward on the project. And until we see that in each other, we can't go do this thing together. So that's what I think we need to work on, is making sure that when we do get to that point, because it always happens, both of us are big enough to continue and go forward. So I'll have that conversation the bigger the deal it is. And so that's how people get to know us and me, by what I believe in and my experience of how values matter as you get into higher and higher stake deals. With a TV set, you don't need to have that conversation.
Definitely. So spoken a lot about values. What would you say are your defining values then? Because you should have alluded to quite a few, but can you just clearly say what are your values and why? Yeah,
sure. So for me, number one thing, so I think the values are the things that, at least in the audience that I've worked with, when I ask people, what are the things that make you mad? Right. And so with Pitch Anything, and I put a lot of content out there, and now I've written a new book, Flip the Script. It's $22 or $14 or free, or, if you can download it as a free, or so I put out an enormous amount of content on the blog, as do you guys. I have a podcast and the books and everything. And we daily get people go, hey, I read Pitch Anything. I underlined everything. I went and did that stuff, and I raised $3 million. I closed the biggest deal of my life. I'm now a good salesperson. So for me, my value is I cannot accept negativity about Oren Klaff or the Pitch Anything, because we've just created too much positivity and changed people's lives. So, other people, I see other people on Instagram like, when somebody's negative, let it blow over you. That makes me, I don't accept that. I won't work with someone or a company or a person or an individual, and we'll unplug them. People say, your haters make you. Not me. I unplug them from my life. So one of my values is negativity. Won't take it. And a second one is we won't work harder than you on your company. Right? Even though we're the vendor, you hired us to write a pitch or raise money or help sell your company or train your salespeople or create a financial model or change your company in some way or get you a bank line of credit. one of my values is you can't ask us to work harder than you will on your own company. So those are the kind of things that people will hear from me right at the outset. Here's another one, right? People come in and they'll see our capability and my track record and talk to me, and they'll scope out something, huge. Sometimes they'll come in and say, we want you to raise $1 billion. We want you to do this $1 billion deal for us. And I say, one of my values is I don't like to move too fast. And I say, look, let's do this in this way. A, let's see if we like each other, which is what these conversations and meetings about. B, let's see if we can work together. C, let's see if we can build something small that's valuable and good. Let's see if we can build something good. And then let's see if other people think it's good. And if we can check those 3 boxes, then let's scope something out that's larger. So those are where my value system, and I think the buyers that we have those same values, and they come in. And if they don't care about that stuff, then we end up not being able to do business with them.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I really like the last one. The second one, like not working harder than the people, is quite interesting, kind of controversial to what you'd normally hear. Then the first point about accepting no negativity, that seems to go right in the opposite of like all you hear about how to improve and growth mindset and like taking on feedback and being able to hear what's wrong with what you're doing to improve it. Do you not feel that maybe you should invite some negativity and like examine your flaws?
So how old are you, by the way? I didn't know. Or give me an age range.
An age range, 25 to 30.
Okay. All right. Listen, fuck you. Okay. Fuck all you 25-year-olds telling me, how the Stoic ethic, how I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very comfortable. So in my swim lane, I'm the one that gets 5-6 emails a day. You changed my life. And I have an online platform with 5,000 people in it. And this is maybe the world's largest petri dish of negotiation, business development, sales technology. And so every week we do a call, an hour and a half, and a bunch of people come on and they'll pose their problem. Hey, we have a buyer that's stuck. They won't move forward. They won't move backwards. How do we move it? We have a buyer that's not responding. We have a buyer who's now saying that we promised more than we actually promised them. It's in the contract. We don't have and so this, for example, we're the best provider we just made a pitch for a company, a hospital group. There's only one person on a 10-person committee that for no reason hates us, right? But nobody will decide against her. So we hear all these problems, every week, every day. And then I'll say, go do this. Here's the solution. So in that case, right, I say, for the woman who's saying, something negative about your company, here's the solution for it. Then they'll go do it and they'll come back. That worked. So I'm very comfortable that I've delivered the value, and in this stuff, I know how to fix these problems. And for people who listen and want to truly fix their problems, I'll help out. And for people who are negative, they can go over to the other places that there are to go. So no, I don't really, now look, am I completely unwilling to do self-introspection? Of course everybody has to do that at some point, but you have to at some point say, this is what we value. This is what we do. We do a good job at it. We continually improve. We get feedback from the market. A large, majority of people love it. And we're just not going to pay attention and buy into the outliers because we don't have to.
Yeah, that's interesting. As in going somewhere as a brand, it is much easier if you could have demonstrated exactly what your values are and you just do what it is you're doing, and rather than alluding to what you were saying much earlier about being needy. And if you are just needy for money and you just do whatever someone's asking and taking on their feedback and every complaint, you end up just doing a bunch of things that you don't actually want to be doing anyway, and you lose all track of your values and working on things you don't want to be working on.
Well, I think people they find themselves in fetch me another rock. And as good as we are here as an organization, if we don't pay attention to this, we end up doing this, right? Fetch me another rock is the buyer, or the partner the transaction goes, hey, we really like what you do. It's fantastic. We really want to onboard this. I want to take it up to committee. This is great. Can you make me a spreadsheet that shows the ROI, and the, really lays out the value proposition. Oh, this is great. We're a little concerned about the technology. You have a white paper that describes the technical aspects of, your implementation and what the math is, behind your, AI machine learning solution is. Oh yeah, here's the white paper. And so eventually it's like, oh, we love the blue rock. Do you have a blue rock with orange dots? We love the blue rock with orange dots. Now we need a pink rock with blue dots on it. Oh, thanks for the pink rock with a blue dot on it. Now we just need a red rock to take it up to committee, to take it up to CFO, to take it up to the board of directors. Great. We took the red rock up to the board of directors. Now all we need is a green rock, white stripes, and we need to show it to Sasquatch. And Sasquatch has to sign off on it. And then, of course, so fetch me another rock is something that people get into unless they have values. They can communicate those values about what they're willing to do in a deal and not do. Because when your values appear out of anger or frustration at the end of a project, the buyer's hearing about it for the first time, like, whoa, where's all this coming from? Well, you always had it. You just didn't communicate it in the beginning.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it does make more sense. So I'm not sure. It's always like a gray line of like nothing's black and white. And I think even though you say no negativity at all, there is room for some in terms of, well, as in like some feedback and like thinking about realigning things. And it makes a lot of sense the way you've spoken about it. It's not just a complete, I'll never listen to anyone that says something bad.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Like a complete sort of dickhead about it. But no, it was it's quite nice having like a refreshing view about how to look at things. It's useful.
And it's individualistic. Like when I wrote the book, when I wrote Pitch Anything, I remember, my agent called and my publisher called in a quite negative tone of voice. Right. And they said, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you going to book signings? Like all authors do. And I was like, you mean like go to a Barnes & Noble and sign 5 books for little old ladies, who are there that day at the Barnes & Noble? Yeah, you got to go to, book signings and we'll schedule them like in Poughkeepsie and Wichita Falls and, West Hollywood and San Jose, like those kinds of Barnes & Nobles. And like, yeah, there's like even William Shatner goes to book signings. Right? I go, well, William Shatner should have written a good book. Wouldn't have to go to book signings in West Hollywood for 5 little old ladies. So you can get that feedback from people who know what they're doing, but these markets constantly change. Things are in the world that I live in, things are constantly changing, especially if you're in social media, if you're in web technologies. I mean, what existed yesterday, maybe not yesterday, 6 months ago as advice. Somebody come in and say, hey, you're doing it wrong. That advice is expired in many cases. So you have to be quite self-sufficient today with your values, with the feedback and the direction you get from other people. There aren't these long cycles of business and tech advice, that right? Because there used to be this network of retired executives, who had retired, and then the young guys coming up would get to meet. And, I had that when I was, and so the things that they knew about business from 25, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, right, were incredibly relevant for the 19, 20, 21, 24-year-olds coming up in their own businesses. But those networks have died because 15-year-old know-how is, unless it's really on accounting, which hasn't changed that much, right, is almost, can be completely backwards, anathema to what you need to do today. So, where's that feedback coming from, and what is your willingness to take feedback from people? Hey, maybe I would say like this, if I can make the point. I'll have a lot of guys come to me and they say, hey, we're trying to raise money, $3 million, right, for our
business.
Dating app for grandmas that includes poker and pet walking API management, right? Sounds like a pretty good deal today. And they'll say, we met with Kleiner Perkins and we went with True Ventures and we met with these angels, right? And they'll say, what True Ventures told us is we were too niche focused and we needed to be broader, right? And then they'll say, oh, what this angel told us is that we should white label our technology and not invest the time to, build technology today. And then what Kleiner Perkins told us is that we need a technical co-founder, right? And I'll always say, okay, so you got all this feedback from these guys. Did they invest? Do not take advice from people who are really just trying to get you out of their building and go away and not want to meet you again, right? They're actually trying to get you to leave and being comforting and giving you a piece of advice for you to go away with. Never take advice from somebody who doesn't have stakes in your business, especially when it's core advice to the decision-making of what you're going to be, how you're going to do things, and ultimately what your business model is, right? That free advice is either useless or worse than useless. And I'll see people come up with a pitch, which is really something I know well, which is a Franken pitch, right? They've taken advice from 7, 12, 15 different people, and then just made a composite of other people's advice about their life, their company, their deal. And it's a total mess. So, I think maybe we beat that subject to death, but you can see I'm very...
Yes. It's could be true though. Think of it. But definitely when you take like all the advice from different places, you can just end up running in a million different directions and actually going nowhere, and just a waste of time. It'd be really interesting to unpack a bit more about your general, I guess, growth mindset in terms of, you sounded like you naturally weren't that good at sales, and you said you just kept on getting up and like failing, but I'd like to understand more the process of how you improved and like develop your confidence, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I think if you think about golf, right, or Olympic lift, I don't play golf, but I do Olympic lift. It's part of CrossFit, and these are very complex movements, right? That I don't know anything about golf, but I understand it's the same thing. Like watching videos or reading books or talking about it cannot improve your Olympic lift at all. It's just, unless you see somebody doing it correctly and you can in 3 dimensions copy it, and then get feedback. It's just very and so I feel like the pitch and sales is very similar. That trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing without really some calibration to somebody who knows what they're doing is very difficult or impossible. And because, as I read the books and I did those things, the books make sense when you read them. I'm sure on a lot of topics, take like, NLP or hypnosis or the personality, personality-based sales or the 10-step, straight line sales model. It all sounds good and it makes sense and it's logical, right? But then you go into a meeting and you're facing somebody who can give you a check for $1 million or can change the whole year or the arc of your career or your life. And you go, did he look? I touched him on the shoulder. Did he look up and to the left? What did I suppose? Am I in step 3? Is he a ESTJ or a LMNOP? They're too complex.
Definitely.
To know where you are and what to do next, especially if you only got it in a training program or in a book. So then what most people do is they just default to the basics, right? So the basic programs are to give people features of your product, your service, explain to them the benefits, how the features, will help them be better in life, wrap a whole story around it, go for the trial close. So what do you think? Is this something you'd be interested? Do you have any questions? Stop me if you have any questions. And then of course the objections come out. Oh, we haven't really budgeted for this year. We have a vendor we're currently happy with. It's more than we thought it would be, whatever the objections are. And now it's the first time in a sale that you really feel empowered to do something. Like there's something right in front of you that you know how to do, which is fight and argumentation, high school debate club over these objections. Well, I know you don't have budget right now, but we can finance it and that will, overcome the objection. And then they'll say, well, that's good. You make a good point. Something you have to think about. And then of course, the way you control somebody thinking is to discount, provided that, if we could get the number right, you think we could get closer to a decision today or this week? Well, if the number was right, we could move a little bit faster. And now you're just giving away margin. So that's sort of what we slip into. But then, as I said before, I started seeing some naturals not do any of that stuff, right? And actually do things that I thought would ruin a sale immediately. And so, for example, I saw my partner walked into a meeting that was really high level. Where were we? We're in San Francisco, to Embarcadero, up in one of these big conference rooms. You're looking out over the bay, and they walk in all their people. And generally, the way these things go is you crosstalk and, hey, how was your weekend? Did you watch the tennis match and everything like that? And Jonathan just goes, hey, so look, I see you guys just showed up for the 10:03 meeting. Why don't we get that one started? Right? I thought, okay, here's another one going the wrong direction. And he goes, does anybody need fluids in or out? If not, let's get started. We got a lot to get through here. In the next 10, 15 minutes, we're going to tell you about the project. Then we're going to give you some time in relation to our project to tell us what's important to you. And if our circles overlap, we'll figure out a way to go forward. Right. And I understand you guys want to learn a lot about the project and you'll be evaluating us, but as much as you'll be evaluating the project and us and our background and everything, we're going to spend our time here evaluating you. So there's a lot to get to. Again, fluids in or out. If not, let's get going. And so when I heard that, I said to myself, coming from sort of an average frustrated background, this meeting is over before it started. But as I looked around, everybody snapped into alignment, put their phones away, put their laptop faces down, and gave 100% attention. And what I realized, although it was counterintuitive, is Russell had communicated, I'm a professional. You're in the hands of a professional. This meeting is going to go the same way you run your internal meetings. Focused, timely, professional, based on common ways of behaving in our commerce system. And you're going to understand with great clarity what's happening, why it's happening, why us, why now, and the value proposition. Why us, why now, and the value proposition. And so he didn't use those words exactly, but as I started unpacking how he was doing things, he was basically coming in and saying, hey, listen, we have information on how everything is changing in this industry. We know how things are going to operate for the next couple of years after the change completely happens. We're one of the few people that know this. We're going to tell you what the value proposition is, what the change that we see is, why we think you're going to get sucked up and consumed by that change, why you should work with us, and why do it now, and how to build trust with us in a very short period of time. That's ultimately what he was sub-communicating. And so as I unpacked it, I said, well, as clumsy as I am, I'll just come in and say these things overtly. Here's how things are changing. Here's why you should work with us. Here's why you should do it now. Here's the value proposition. Here's the ROI. Here's the key assumptions. Here's how this is a pro forma. Here's who's on our team. And here's a decision-making timeline that we're willing to live with. And so as I started doing the things that he was doing as a natural, overtly, it started working better. And so I think that was a very long answer to a short question.
Wow. I mean, don't ask people questions, do you? I guess,
Yeah,
I liked it. It's interesting. I really liked his pitch. It was good.
Yeah.
I think I'd have been there like, whoa, this guy's a god. Cool, I'll do whatever he says.
Well, I think that's
demonstrates. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the new book is about, is how to communicate, right? That I'm part of your industry and that I'm an expert, right? Because if somebody trusts you, communication that you have a place in the industry, you know the norms, you know the mores, you know the KPIs, right? That you know people in the industry, that people know you, and you have your place in that industry. That's really all about status, right? And status communicates trust. Low status, low trust; high status, high trust, right? And the second thing is, if you can pitch someone about their problem without asking them a million questions about it, go, hey, I got a good idea of what's going on with you guys, right? And you can pitch them as an expert, and they believe you're an expert. Well, now you've got two things. You've got status and expertise, which to me, in my mind, in my tiny pea brain, is trust and certainty. Status is trust. Expertise provides certainty. That's what the naturals are doing in their own inimitable way. They're creating trust and certainty, and that's a deal.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So talking about like your new book, I'm really liking the whole kind of concept of unusual ways to do business that are actually much more simple and making a lot of sense. I would really like to know, what do you think was the hardest thing for you to write about in the book?
Frames.
Okay.
You know, because frames you can, so my buddies and I, you know, Jonathan and everything, we talked about frames, frame control, the power frame, the intrigue frame, the prize frame, the scarcity frame, you know, all these ways of looking at the world.
Mm.
And then we tried to write about it, and it was just confusing. So then I got every single white paper, document, book on framing. And there's a huge body of political information on framing, you know, frame the narrative. And I go, wow, well, this is going to be easy to plagiarize. I mean, copy and paste. I mean, reinterpret.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you've written a book.
I do science. That's
yeah, right. Exactly.
I am writing actually at the moment. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. So take all this sciencey stuff, dumb it down for business people. And because I know the power of frames. We use them, and what it does is it provides a common language for people who are dealing with other business people in social situations to talk to each other. Oh, they're using the power frame. How are we going to overcome that? We're going to use the intrigue frame. Let's stack two frames, right? The prize frame and the intrigue frame. And it's just, these are lenses that you put on a situation to help somebody see what it is you have, why it's valuable, what your time frame is. Look, we're all familiar. You know, if you're new to frames and you're listening to this, you know, you already know what frames are because there's a time frame, right? So you walk in to a Lamborghini dealership, I mean a Toyota dealership, whatever it is, right? And you go, hey, you know, we're looking at the 4Runner, right? And they go, well, what's your time frame, right? Hey, motherfucker, my time frame is 5 minutes. I have to be in this car and driving. And all kinds of frames fall out of that, right? If there's, you know, so they say, what's your time frame? And you say, you know, we're just looking, right? There's two totally different set points, lenses through which to see the entire interaction. We're just looking, or I need to be out of here in 5 minutes with a car, right? Like that's how I negotiate for cars today. I walk in and I go, hey, this 4Runner, how much is it? It's $48,000. I go, great, I'll take it, right? Because you can't buy my weekend for $2,000, which is the most you're going to get off of a $48,000 4Runner is $2,000, but you're going to spend a weekend doing it, right? And you cannot buy my weekend for $2,000 try. You know, my little boy goes to hockey, we go surfing, I got a bike ride to get to. So I don't have, you know, so anyway, you're familiar with time frames, but there's other kinds of frames, control business. So we looked at all this political framing, material and science, and it just was gobbledygook. You know, unless you are inside of politics or you're inside these nuanced areas where you already use framing, and you didn't know anything about framing, it didn't make any sense. And in fact, when I go to speak, you know, the companies always go, yeah, we want to hear about frames. And of course I try and an audience that's coming fresh into frames knows nothing about it during a keynote. And I'm pretty good at this stuff, can't ramp up an audience on what frames are and how they work from the stage. It's just a subject that, you know, I almost gave up on it 2 or 3 times. I called in a buddy of mine, and we just figured out how to write it, and we succeeded with it. But it was the most difficult thing I ever undertook, was writing about a cognitive idea that is so abstract but controls every social interaction. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's related in some ways to mindsets as well. It's kind of like a cognitive thing that kind of is a bit of a meta way of viewing the world and kind of relates to everything. And sometimes I kind of completely fluff it up where I try to explain it to people.
Well, I think the problem with mindset is it doesn't give you a common language to talk to people, right? That, you know, if you're a couple executives in your company, right, and you're going in and you're sort of talking, hey, our mindset is going to be positive, right? Our mindset is going to be firm, right? But those aren't lenses.
Yeah.
Those are positions, right? And so I'll give you an example, you know, and you read the book, the prize frame is, I think we started off talking about this. Who is the prize? Who's the most important person in this whole interaction? If you make it the buyer, right, then they're the prize that you're trying to win. So that's a frame. If you make the prize you, then the buyer is trying to win your attention, your product, your service. So that's why I think frames are different than mindsets.
Yeah. It's definitely related, but like fundamentally kind of like a different way of like framing it.
Yeah.
To go with the frames.
Yeah. Welcome to the challenge of frames. Yeah.
Nightmare. Cool. I like it. But yeah, it is more challenging to explain the mindsets already. So I'll let you deal with it, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, believe me, I get the patron saint. I'm the patron saint of tough things to explain and tough deals. Nobody gives me the easy ones.
Definitely. I think we kind of can relate on making things difficult for ourselves. And I think the way that you explain things, I kind of quite relate to it. I can see where you maybe used to have more challenges, as in certainly when I'm trying to like explain things, I kind of unpack the wrong things first and get like a bit in the wrong direction and go off some tangents to eventually bring it all back and it makes sense. But it takes quite a long time, and some people just go like straight to the heart of it, and you're like, wow, why couldn't I have just done that? Like, and your explanation has been a bit long, not to like give you any negativity, but it seems like you probably got so much better at this than you maybe used to be, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny because we just proposed a big speaking gig, and my speaking agent was tragically killed, young woman, and she was killed in a car accident. It was very tragic. And so now I've got a new speaking agent, you know, and then so ramping her up on, you know, my background. And to your point, you know, she found some videos, you know, in their whatever Dropbox from like 5 years ago, and she sent them to a client. I was copying. I'm like, oh my, delete those from never. Let those go out of your email ever again. That was like shockingly horrible. Like, here's a modern video of me, and like the gap from 5 years ago is, you know, I look at 5-year-old me speaking, and it's embarrassing. And so this is stuff that if you're focused on it, you're trying hard, you get better and better at. But I wanted to key off of something you said, which is like, you know, you try something, you say that doesn't, you know, sort of this Instagram mantra, you know, Edison didn't fail. He just found another way not to make the light bulb, right? This is this Instagrammable quote, you know, 10X, try harder, hustle. And that, I think that's really one of the things I stand against today is this hustle porn, right? Which is try harder, work harder, work more, do it another way. And so I go back to this Olympic lift, right? And even like I've been doing Olympic lift for 5-6 years. I feel like I'm good at it. And when the weight gets heavy, right, there's this sort of notion that you bounce it off your mid leg, and that gives it some additional upward momentum. If that makes any sense, right? So you're lifting the weight. Yeah. You're not going to clear it up to your shoulders. You bounce it off. That gives it like a jolt upwards. And you continue to clean it up and then get it on your shoulders. And so now I have an Olympic lift coach, and he goes, if you really watch the Olympic lifters, right, it looks like they're bouncing it. That's why everybody does it. But that's just the moment where it pauses before they snap their hips, and the hips gives it that upper movement, but it never touches them, right? And so you can observe people in social situations, in pitch situations, in business situations. You can watch Elon Musk all day long. Actually, I have another good example of this. And do everything that he does, but unless you know what he's really doing, you can fail even worse by observing the things he's doing. And so, I always come back from these heavy lifts with these, this is how we got into this situation with these bruised thighs. And they're like, where is that coming from? I'm like, oh, I'm just bouncing it like the pros do. And I go, look, watch this. The pros don't bounce it. But my current partner, Jack, at Intersection Capital, the way we got together is I was putting out pitch decks for years, and I was winning deals against them. Finally, as competitors, he just called me up. He goes, we've been trying to copy those pitch decks, for 2 years, and we can't get it right. I'm like, yeah, because you're copying what you see. You don't know what's powering, like the mindset that goes to create those. And once I showed him the mindset, the understanding, the sequencing, the storytelling, the narrative, the organization, the structure behind it, now he does it as well or better than I can, right? So for years I tried to copy it, couldn't do it. I explained to them a little bit, a couple of hours of how I formulate those pitch decks, and now he's as great at it as I ever was. So this is, I think, the problem with trying hard and hustling and doing it yourself, and then coming back and self-introspection, evaluating and journaling, right? And all this stuff. You really need to know from people who've got it working, whether they're natural or experts, what are they really doing that you're seeing that's creating that impact?
I agree with most of what you say, but I do really like introspection and journaling and things. I do feel like I get a lot from that.
I know, because you're 25 years old. You love journaling. No,
maybe as I'm older, I won't need to do it so much, perhaps.
No, I journal every day, but I do it differently now because I have a little boy. I have a 5-year-old, and so every day I record something that he did, that really affected our. I take a photo and then I'll write it on paper. I love pen and ink, and I write it on paper. And so we have and by the way, my wife wants me to put it in a book, a spiral bound book, so it's sequential. But I grab a piece of paper and I'll put a photo on it, and I'll write what he did, why it was important, what I love about it, and just, trying to, and in that, it's a little bit of journaling, and doesn't feel so, deeply introspective, but at least I'm recording the passing of time. So if you love journaling, you're never going to stop, but it will change. You'll get sick of yourself by the time you're 42.
I think that's one of the things I do like about journaling is getting sick about being a whiny bitch about something consistently for a week. You're like, shit, why am I still whining about this? Either I need to just stop caring, or just not do it and things. And so I still get benefit from that a bit. And yeah, it's interesting. But I do quite like also what you're saying earlier about your videos from 5 years ago being quite embarrassing, and certainly this podcast and things. I'm kind of aware that I am quite young, and maybe half the time I'm not really doing the best job of it, but it's so much better than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm aware that maybe I'll look back at it in a few years' time and be like, well, crap, I did really not ask the right questions, or kind of sound like a bit of an idiot the whole time whilst I was speaking, but at least the guest was okay. And at least I kind of know that I'm getting better every time. And it's kind of nice to observe myself doing these things. And you have, and you're, I'm not good enough, so I'll just never do it. But I need to carry on doing it to get to the point where I'll actually be at the stage where I really want to be in that sense.
You're in the game, so that's, so Instagram, hey, 90% of the battle is just showing up. No, it's not 90%, but it's a good 4 to 5%. You also have to have skills and work hard and put resources and time and money in it and be lucky and, have relationships that care about you and treat people well and actually be focused on adding value to people's lives, but not so much value that you're giving it away. That's 90% of it. But it's good to be showing up.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I like talking about is the future. So you're kind of an expert in the sales arena.
Well,
do you think
I don't know. I don't know. I never sold, right? I mean, I come from deal making. The book is very popular in the sales arena, and I try and help salespeople be less needy and structure their presentation. But, and they like that material. It's like saying, Dan Ariely is in the sales arena. I mean, he's in the psychology arena in which salespeople find his stuff very useful. I try not to pigeonhole, in sales.
Yeah. Okay. Well, basically, whatever arena you feel like you maybe are an expert in, where do you see it in 5 years' time? It's do you think there is going to be a fundamental shift that you might be able to predict, or
Yeah, it's happened.
what you're doing?
It's happened.
It's
And there
already
might be a fundamental shift in time here. I got to check time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We have a few minutes.
Okay.
We have a few minutes. Okay. So there's 7,000 companies
Mm-hmm.
in lead gen, CRM, lead management, funnel hacking, AI, lead nurturing, lead, whatever it is, Zapier APIs, right? And so companies are drowning in leads, and they're driven by technology. So become super smart about the technology. Once you have a lead, and I'm not talking about, selling a TV or a $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, $500,000 thing. You actually have somebody, hey, I'm interested in working with you, buying from you, doing a deal with you, being involved with you. No amount of technology, any technology you use to try and convert that lead will make the conversion process worse, right? Case in point, if you and I were working on a deal, we couldn't get Zoom working for like 3 times, right? Not your fault, not my fault, maybe not even Zoom's fault, the cloud's fault. Conversion is 100% the stuff we're talking about here. The lost art of sequencing your information for a buyer, for a deal, in the way that the buyer wants to buy, in a way that you're not being obsequious or pushy or needy, in a way that fits the way buyers buy today, which they've really gamified buying. So one is we become dependent on tech. I see companies drowning in leads, right? You think about like these, just in my mind, I see this vision of these hikers, have gone up Kilimanjaro, and the weather has moved in and they've used up all their supplies, and it's 3 days and they're coming down and they're dying of thirst, but they're walking on ice, right? And they're dying of thirst because they can't convert the ice into water. It's too cold. And so I see companies, the formulas are no longer working in terms of conversion. Used to be, you had 100 leads, you pitched them, you're going to get 10% into the pipeline, and out of those, you're going to convert 2% in pipeline management. Today, you see conversion rates can be 0. You can have 100 leads and convert 0 of them. People don't know how to talk in a way that buyers today want to buy. So they're losing, and buying has been gamified, right? Buyers today have more information than, you do, in many times about your product, and they're at a different point in the sales cycle than you may think they are. And they're just looking for a price, features, and ROI. Then they want to put you in a box, press the hold button, say, I'll be right back, and look for that same thing for cheaper or free, right? And so that's the game that buyers play. And unless you know how to handle that today, things are very different than the way they were 5-6 years ago. And I think that, I see your mind spinning. Is that smoke? Is smoke coming out of your headset?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the take-home message from that would be in terms of what would I then do? What would I be doing differently in 5 years' time apart from just making a mess?
Buyers buy how they want to buy, not how you want to sell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Here's the takeaway. Today, things are bought, they aren't sold.
Yes. I like that.
Yeah. And that's good because that's the first line, first page of Flip the Script. Right? I don't like to be pressured. Let me see. I can't remember. I wrote that on. But it's something about pressure. Yeah. I don't like being pressured into making a purchase, and I'm not alone. Over decades of being marketed, pitched, and sold to and lied to, we've all grown resistant to sales persuasion. The moment we feel pressure to buy, we pull away. And if we're told what to do or think, our defenses go up. In other words, buyers don't put much trust in you and your ideas. However, everyone trusts their own ideas. Accordingly, today products are bought, not sold.
Right on point. And a nice quote to finish things off there. Okay, so just a few very final questions that I like to go into. What's the kindest thing that someone has ever done for you?
Oh, yeah, that's great. I've never been asked that question. So when I was writing Pitch Anything, I wasn't able to work because the book started dragging me under. Started taking a lot of time. You know, if you produce a science paper or a science project or a book, it pulls you under because you want to get it right. And I wasn't able to work as I was finishing it, and it was really becoming stressful. Spending money but not earning money. And I was at the gym working out with a buddy of mine, and he was having his own situation. He was in a lawsuit and real pain for him, and he was under his own stress and wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be in his own life. So two uncertain people, longtime friend. I get home and I open my duffel bag and there's a $10,000 check in there. And that allowed me to, without any concern or worry, finish writing the book. And that's an easy answer to that question.
Wow, nice friend.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of a hard one to kind of recommend other people to go and do. Like, oh, if your friend's trying to write a book, just like leave a check in the gym bag.
Yeah.
As in showing up for someone, if you are able to, I think is super important. And yeah, definitely try and do more of that. So cool. Thank you. That's a really nice story. And then what is possibly one of your earliest memories that you can like really remember quite vividly?
Yeah. So I was born in Jerusalem. And I think really my first functioning memory is we moved from Jerusalem to Wisconsin. And when the door first opened to the back of our station wagon to where we were going to be living in Madison, I just remember the cold sitting in the back of the station wagon and never having experienced. So it must have been 4 or something like that. So cold. My first memory is of cold.
Wow. Did that scare you at the time?
Yeah, thanks for the flashback. You know, I've been in therapy for 35 years, getting that out of my mind. But now, thanks to this situation, I'm back in therapy.
Yeah. Wow. That's how you frame it.
Yeah. Yeah, it did scare me.
That's interesting. Cool. Do you think it kind of put you off being there, or were you able to kind of be positive afterwards?
Oh, you know, I just have to look at the final. I'm a positive, you know, I look at the final product. So I feel like I overcame that trial.
Yeah. But do you think maybe that helped you in the long run, realize that you can get over your problems, and perhaps this is why you became like much better at sales when you were faced with a problem? Or
I would answer this, like if you look culturally at Israelis, you know, I wasn't in Israel for very long, 4 or 5 years, but I think I was there long enough to get that tenacity because my parents aren't Israeli by birth. And so I think I was long enough there to get that culture into my my makeup, you know, of tenacity, of sort of continuing forward, you know, even trying to find strength out of weakness, and whatever Instagram quote, you know, want to use, the way is forward, not backwards. The view is from the top, you know, whatever.
cool. It's nice.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. I definitely noticed that whilst I was out in Israel. It's an interesting country. Okay. Have you got any questions you want to ask me about? Or is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked?
Well, I think, you know, the thing that is so important for me today in, you know, the way buyers are today is how do you show someone you're an expert? And I think that's ultimately, you know, maybe for the next time, because it's a whole topic. Because today when I meet people, they tell people they're an expert. How do you show people you're an expert? Because once you show someone and they believe you're an expert, then they start to have certainty that the things you're promising really will happen. And so I think there's a huge line, although it seems nuanced, between telling people you're an expert, right?
Yeah.
And showing your likes or showing your, you know, track record or showing the testimonials, or, you know, that's telling.
Yeah, it seems like saying, I know a really great story, or I've got a really great joke, but not telling it. Like, I don't think you're funny or a good storyteller just because you told me that. Like, I need to hear the great story or the joke, and I'm like, shit, this guy's funny.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. So how do you show someone that you're an expert in their kind of problem? Once somebody feels like you've solved their problem 1,000 times in a row, it's pretty much a boring push-up to do it.
Yeah.
then I think you've
Yeah.
accomplished a lot.
That's why CVs are so useless. But yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I like that tip. Thanks. Then I guess as you spoke about my age a bit, I'm actually 28, by the way, soon to be 29.
Okay.
Woo.
All right. Oh, so I take it back. I take all that swearing back. You're
Yeah.
actually a lot more seasoned and mature than I thought.
Damn. But yeah, I'm still very young and open to feedback. Any big life tips that you think I should really concentrate on? Like,
I think I would concentrate on this notion of when you see this runaway success in people, whether it's podcasting or science or something or book writing that you care about, this is mostly powered by luck. I have worked with billionaires, hundreds of 100 millionaires, 1,000, 10 millionaires, but sometimes there's just like these incredibly smart, talented Elon Musks. Although maybe if you follow Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos all the way back, it's just there's a moment in time that was unbelievable. Most of it is luck, right? So this is going to sound trite, but work hard, carry water, chop wood, get to the end of the day with poise and grace, and move forward. When you do all this work with expectations and that you are deserving of something, it starts to unravel pretty quickly.
oh, no, I got that all perfectly.
And so, maybe that's high school gym coach, but maybe that's the best advice, high school gym coach advice is so much, 100 million, 10 million, 1 million, 5 million, 70 million, 1 billion. Most of it is luck.
Cool. Thanks. That's I think quite true. It's really interesting studying people that have been massively successful in some, just sort of can root down to kind of just being in the right place at the right time. And sure, they made a lot of good decisions, but they didn't make those decisions any more wisely than other people that had made decisions that went wrong. And pretty funny. So what a really good interview. Oren is a bit of a badass. I'm really happy that we got the chance to speak. He certainly has his own view on the world and is pretty strong on his values and doesn't take any crap from anyone, which quite refreshing and nice. So in terms of my top take homes, I really like this point about neediness killing deals. And yeah, if you turn up and you are really just trying to do whatever you can to get the person's money, and it just is, it's kind of obvious, and it just ends up leading to you having quite a bad situation that isn't really what you wanted. And in anything in life, when you're just needy about things, it just makes everything worse. So if you can be much stronger on your values and really stick to who you are and be like an actual person that's very much like, this is me, I stand for what I do. Like, it's very easy for people to work with you and do the right things that you want them to do, rather than doing the things that they might want you to do, but maybe aren't even. So I also have explained this terribly, but essentially just don't be needy and have good values. And that's the most important point. Secondly, his growth mindset attitude of just doing stuff. Like, yes, there are great books and lessons and everything, but they don't ever do the work for you. The only way that you really, really learn the essence of something is by doing it. So you can read a book at the time that you're doing it. It might motivate you to do more, and it might make you realize the thing that you're making the mistake at a time that you're doing it, so you can then go back and do the same thing again better. But just reading will never get you anywhere in life. You actually have to go and do the hard things yourself and just learn through experience. That is a huge point. And then lastly, I really liked his tip to me, personal tip. It was good. I'm glad I asked that, which was that most people who are hugely successful do get there through kind of luck. And sure, you do have to work hard and just keep on moving forwards. But if you constantly have expectations about things, it's just not useful for you. And you just need to remember that you need to be in the right place at the right time somewhere and not get pissed off when things don't go your way. And also, I really like this point about showing that you are an expert rather than telling, because just talking about stuff is meaningless, and you really need to like actually prove by doing stuff. So yeah, it's a big one. And related to his point on kindness and things, you can talk about however kind you want to be. At the end of the day, it doesn't make you a kind person. So show that you're a kind person by being kinder. And I've been trying to do that, which doesn't show you anything. So maybe not the best example. I guess I could mention that although I haven't given anyone a 10 grand check like this person, like Oren had, I have given a friend £16,000 to get him out of credit card debt this year. I say loaned him, but still pretty nice. It's a bit of a risk for someone like me who doesn't have £16,000 lying around. So I think that was pretty kind of me. So yeah, I think I'm showing up for people when they need something. Hopefully you can too. And now moving on to books. Well, obviously we only really spoke about Oren's books, Pitch Anything, which is pretty good, and Flip the Script, which seems to be actually a genuinely useful read for sales. But as Oren says himself, books are kind of meaningless without doing it. So if you're actually trying to do sales and are going to actually put these lessons into practice, great. If you're just sitting at home and want to improve your sales by doing nothing, then this isn't the book for you, apparently. So there we go. Great podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. And tune in again next week. Or don't, because you're too busy selling things. Who knows? All right. Ciao.